The question that we could debate forever: should you ride flat or clipless pedals on your mountain bike? The answer is yes. Hey, it's Coach Eric and my trusty sidekick Nico here, bringing you another weekly video. Today's video was a question I got from a YouTube athlete comment, so thank you for that. I appreciate it. If you have a comment or an idea for a video, put a comment below or email me at ewjtri@gmail.com. You can also follow me on various social media platforms: ewjtri, Instagram, Training Peaks, Strava, Facebook. I'm basically everywhere. All right, so flat pedals basically look like this, pretty flat. Yeah? And clipless pedals look something like this, except your shoe is actually going to be attached and clipped in. So even though I'm going to tell you the pros and cons of flat and clipless pedals, I'm definitely a little bit biased because I rode clipless pedals on my road bike and tri-bike on the road for almost 10 years before I got my first mountain bike. When I bought that mountain bike, I got the flat pedals, but it was really uncomfortable. I gave up really quickly and immediately at that point went to clipless pedals on the mountain bike and stayed with it. If it's up to you and you've never ridden before, you're just getting into riding any type of cycling, I would definitely do the flat pedals. Racing off-road triathlons, I definitely pass people who are using clipless pedals, and I pass people who are using flat pedals. And on the other flip side of that, I actually get passed by people who are using flat pedals, and I get passed by people doing clipless pedals. So you tell me which one's better. All right, that's all you need to know. If you really want to know some specific pros and cons, here you go. All right, pros of clipless pedals. Number one, you have more control because your foot is actually attached in there. So it's easier to go over roots and rocks. It's easier to lift your rear wheel. And that's really because your foot never comes off the pedal. You are essentially part of the bike. Clipless pedal number two, you can actually get a higher cadence going, which is especially helpful when you're in a higher gear going uphill. You really need to spin. You can also actually pull up on the pedal because you're attached, which gets more of the hamstrings involved as opposed to just using the quads. Pro number three, it really leads to a more efficient ride when you're in the clipless pedals, which really is what we're all looking for. I know somebody's going to debate that, so do it. So those three things make clipless pedals sound pretty awesome, and they are. But using clipless takes actually less skill, which I guess could be both a pro and a con. So here's the cons. Clipless pedal cons. Number one, they're more expensive. Usually twice as much money. And that's just for the minimum type requirements. So you might pay $60-65 for a clipless pedal, and you need a special shoe that clips in, which is probably going to be at least $75, whereas with a flat pedal, $30-35, and you're out there on the trails. Con number two is it takes a lot more to get used to these, and it makes you more likely to crash. I mean, you could be going to the dismount line at the end of the bike leg in the triathlon, getting ready to go out on the run leg. You roll into the mountain line, you're going 2 miles an hour, and you can't quite get your foot out of the pedal, and you end up actually falling over and crashing. So just be aware of that. It takes some practice. You definitely want to do that a lot before you actually go out and race in these clipless pedals. Once you get used to it, you should be fine on flat terrain, but then some of the courses might have more difficult terrain, downhills, uphills, turns, that you typically may want to take your foot off briefly and you're not able to do it. So even as you get more skilled and used to them, more difficult riding can actually still cause some difficulties with the clipless pedals. Con number three is that your position and your center of gravity changes, and typically it bumps you up higher. You typically want a lower center of gravity when you're really out there trying to control and maneuver through the trails. So again, this just takes some getting used to and getting some practice, and you'll be fine. But it also, so that requires more skill to be able to do some of those things. When throwing the clipless pedals on to start, it actually takes less skill. So it can be kind of, you have to be careful that you don't advance too quickly with the terrain when you've got those clipless pedals. All right, pros of the flat pedal. You can stick this on your bike and use any shoe that you've got, even the running shoe that you're gonna run, the run leg in of the triathlon. So you put these regular shoes on after T1, you jump on your bike with the flat pedals, you have a great bike leg. You easily dismount off the bike, you're not falling at the dismount line, you rack your bike, and you're out there on the trails. So for potentially a faster transition, and you don't have to change shoes. That was technically two pros. Any shoe you want, and a better T2. Pro number three is that you're gonna learn better core foundational skills. And one example is just being able to lift your rear rear wheel off the ground. It is super easy. Anybody can do it with clipless pedals because you're clipped in and you just lift and that back wheel pretty much goes up. With flat pedals, much more difficult, and definitely a skill worth learning along with other skills such as bunny hops and so on. So learning great skills is a huge advantage, but it takes time. Two main cons of these guys. Number one is your foot is constantly sliding off all the time. Now, again, going back to the pro real quick, if you want to take your foot off, that's great, but it just happens way too many times. You're just regularly riding, you want your foot to stay on there, and it's slipping off and coming off, which causes real issues. Going into con number two, which is related to that, is that your shins will take an absolute beating on these things. You've got a lot of these little grooves here. This is just a plastic one, but when your foot slips off, potentially as you're driving forward, if this is your leg, it will hit your shin like that. And I took a couple nasty bruises on the shin just from riding flat pedals on regular terrain when my foot slipped off. So just be really aware of that. Probably if you're gonna try these, I'd probably invest in some shin guards specific to mountain biking, or I guess if you have some, kids have some soccer shin guards laying around, you can throw those on. But seriously, your shins will take a beating, so just be careful of that. Okay, let's sum up. Clipless pedals, you're more in control, your feet stay on the pedals, but you're more likely to fall, especially when you're learning, and it's more expensive. I'd like to add more efficient. Flat pedals. You can use any shoe you want, although there are special shoes you could buy. It's a lot easier to get on and off of your bike. You're going to develop better foundational skills, especially if you have some patience, but your shins are going to take a beating. So after all that, which one should you use? The answer, again, is yes. Really, it's personal preference. So again, if you've never tried either one, start with the flat pedals. It's better foundation, and you can always advance to clipless pedals. If you're riding flats right now and you absolutely love them, I really wouldn't switch. Okay, hope that was helpful for you. Put a comment below. Flat pedals, clipless pedals, what works best for you. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss another video. And until next week, we'll see you on the trails.